Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, opening day comes and goes. Yankees with a textbook 7-0 win over the San Francisco Giants. Pretty much everything went just as planned as booked. It couldn't really be any better. Obviously, not too happy with Judge's 4 strikeouts. Came out as a little bit of an eyesore, but again, very satisfying opening day win on the road for the Yankees. So we'll look back at the game as well. This was a Netflix production, a movie, not really, but obviously, we'll kind of look at that. I thought they did an okay job. Obviously, it's a duck out of water for them, so some things we can nitpick as well. So we'll look at the whole thing. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. There's also the YouTube version of the show. Go to YouTube, search for Section 420 Talkin Yankees. Subscribe as well. We have the whole season ahead of us. You want to get the YouTube channel, but you want to get the audio podcast right here, which you're listening to right now. Get my takes on things much quicker. You don't have to wait a whole week for a new TV or / YouTube episode. Make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast version of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast. So getting to opening day, Max Fried getting the ball against Logan Webb. I like the fact that obviously the Yankees won 7-0, but it wasn't a situation where they just relied on home runs. I mean, the Yankees really put the bat to Webb, worked a couple of walks. Wasn't just relying on the home run. Some guys such as Trent Grisham who struggled in the spring, getting a huge triple there. It really goes to show that the spring training really means nothing. Whether someone's doing really well or really not well. I mean, there's other things involved in that as well. And when the rubber meets the road, you get into the season. Trent Grisham, again, not going to say he's going to be an all-star or anything like that, but just getting a nice triple there in a big spot and then beating it out with his legs that slide in there. It looked like almost might have jammed his shoulder a little bit or got a concussion. This way he kind of slid there hard there, but, hold your breath for a second, but look, he came out all right. And then some of the other guys that chip in, Cabarello, one of the quote-unquote newer faces, both Cabrera and McMahon were picked up during last year's trade deadline. This is the part of the walking it back. Well, not exactly, because it was a little bit of a different team towards the second half of the season. You're seeing some of those guys. Cabrera with a big RBI hit. McMahon with a nice little seeing eye single up the middle there. And even Giancarlo Stanton going up the middle as well. And Max Fried, just good enough. Not saying he was lights out, but he had a couple guys on here and there, walked a few, but overall kept the Giants off balance. Able to pitch into the 7th inning. The Yankees probably could have extended him a little bit longer at that point. 7-0. He was kind of cruising along, but I understand he was probably on a pitch count, and you're not going to mess around on opening day. And the rest of the Yankee bullpen, good to see Jake Bird, obviously. He was a bit of a disappointment last year, but he was just completely overtaxed in Colorado. And of course, when he came here, he was basically on fumes. Gets out of the 7th inning, and the Yankees just go Hedrick and Duvall to close the game out. And the offense kind of went to bed after the 5th inning, pretty much. But again, a 7-0 lead there. And really, the Giants, that lineup, kind of light there. I mean, you got a couple names in that lineup, such as Devers and Adames, stuff like that. But really, it's a real light hitting lineup there. So unless something crazy happened, you really kind of expected the Yankees to take this first game. But of course, you look at the box score, and I guess the really only blemish I mentioned at the top there was Judge's 4 strikeouts. Now, Webb is pretty tough. I'm not, some of those pitches were really tough to hit. So, got to tip your hat a little bit to Webb as well. But, Judge maybe a little bit of a hangover from the World Baseball Classic, where he, again, also had an 0-for-4 game with 3 strikeouts, this time with the golden sombrero. So, a real rarity for Judge. So, hope he's not really, anything's getting a head case to start the season. I don't think that's the case because, once he got back, we saw him hit a home run one of the final tune-up games in spring training. So, I just think you tip your cap just to Webb. Again, he was nasty, but unfortunately, the Yankees were able to get a couple of bats to him and get him some big spots. And the Giants a little bit sloppy with some of the infield defense as well. And on the other side, the Yankee defense, like what you saw specifically in the outfield, that was not easy with the sun and the shadows there early on. And you saw both Grisham and Bellinger tracking down some balls there, made it to the wall. But really, Fried wasn't really hit that hard at all. It really kept the Giants off balance and never really put any sort of threat. And the Yankees also turning a couple of double plays as well. So really, there's not really much about it. Really can't complain about it. Pretty much went as planned. And as for the game, it was a Netflix deal, which not a lot of people too happy with. Obviously, this is seemingly a one and done. Maybe just they open this more a little bit future. I think overall, it was okay. Obviously, this is a duck out of water for them. You had Matt Vasgersian. If you play MLB, any of these video games for PlayStation, you're probably familiar with his name, but also from the MLB Network. Him behind the mic in the booth with Hunter Pence and CeCe Sabathia. CeCe Sabathia, of the 3 of them, he kind of looked a little bit of a duck out of water there. Just really didn't offer much. And this, I don't know, it seemed like also this wasn't able to talk into the mic well. Sometimes the acoustics weren't the greatest. But, again, this is kind of the first time throwing him out there, so, didn't expect too much. It was a little interesting. They brought Rob Manfred, the commissioner, during the middle of the game. Unfortunately, for him though, I mean, maybe fortunate because he didn't want to answer really questions. Fried actually had kind of a 1-2-3, like a breeze inning almost there, so really didn't get much out of him there. I thought it was probably one of the more interesting things when Barry Bonds dropped by, Mr. who was out of baseball and kind of giving the cold shoulder with the Hall of Fame and stuff. Well, he's invited into the booth for opening day there, so I guess he's back in baseball. But I meant he's back in the good graces. Obviously, we know he's been a coach with the Marlins for a couple of seasons. But I thought it had an interesting Yankee story mentioning with Steinbrenner. Any chance you could have been playing for the Yankees? I guess that's probably before he signed the deal to go join the Giants. Mentioning that Steinbrenner actually did offer a contract, but gave him 20 minutes to say yes or no on the deal. And I guess after 20 minutes, he pulled it off the table. And Barry Bonds was like, well, I didn't even have lunch yet. Let me think this over. So Steinbrenner, I guess, went for the hard close there on Barry Bonds. And I guess this Bonds wasn't feeling with, so he ended up with the Giants and had the career he had, and I guess that's how that all went there. So I felt that was probably pretty interesting there. But overall, yeah, that was all right. I thought the opening was kind of interesting with the player introductions, and the New York players coming out of the New York City taxi yellow cabs there, man, with the girls dancing on a little bit. It was kind of a little weird, but I thought that was actually pretty cool, pretty awesome. I thought that was better than the San Francisco players coming out of the trolley, which you expect they would have there. So I thought that was all right. A little cheesy, but I wouldn't want that every game. But for the first game, just whatever, it doesn't make a difference. And also, I thought it was pretty cool the coverage of the McCovey Cove, whatever, that water out there with people. They had the one guy who's mentioned he was out there drinking beers. I don't know if you'd get that on a regular broadcast, but maybe because of Netflix, they wanted to be a little risque. So I thought that was pretty cool as well there. So overall, I'd give the whole thing, at least the telecast, the presentation, like a 7 out of 10. For the first time, wasn't terrible. I thought it was all right. But most importantly, the Yankees won, so that's what you take away. And for some other news and notes, didn't really get to do this much in the last YouTube episode. Kind of ran out of time a little bit, and the news kind of broke down late. But Luis Gil not with the team on opening day. No, nothing because they obviously didn't have the greatest spring. Now, after the Detroit game, he did get hammered, and I kind of mentioned that maybe a couple of YouTube episodes ago that he did not have a good spring. He did have a good start after that, but this is more of a scheduling thing. So the Yankees are going to have 4 off days in the first 12 days of the season, so they don't really need the 5-man rotation. So they just kind of want to get him down AAA, just maybe just work on a couple more things. So that's going to exercise his final minor league option. Then after that, he's kind of have to stay up here. And stay here unless he gets put on the IL if he's injured. Okay, but anything like that, if he gets sent down again, then it could be a situation where they'll have to put him on the waiver wires or designate for assignment trade, which I don't see it happening. But so this is just more of a scheduling move more than anything else. And the Yankees kind of go with the 4-man rotation early on, and then when they have to, they'll have probably bring him up. And a couple other notes just right before opening day as well. Interestingly, with Garrett Cole, who did pitch in the final spring training game of the season, got some work there. The Yankees actually moved him from the 60-day IL to the 15-day IL. So it looks like he's on track to come a little sooner than maybe we thought. So possibility sometime May might be in the air. So that would actually be good news if that's the case. And similar to Rendon as well. I believe he was on a 15 and then they upped it to a 10-day IL. As well as Volpe also put on the 15-day IL as well. So Yankees is kind of making some of those moves there just starts the season. So maybe some of those guys come back a little bit sooner than we thought. But for Cabarello, got a big hit in the game, got the Yankees on the board early. Defense seemed fine. And if you want to take this into your trivia, becomes the first official Major League player to utilize the ABS system to challenge a pitch. He lost the challenge, but if you want to put that nugget in the back of your head sometime on a trivia, who's the first player to challenge? That would be Jose Cabarello. Now, he lost the challenge, so maybe there'll be another trick question somewhere down the road. Who's the first player to win the challenge? Well, that's remained to be seen, so it was only used once. And kind of, maybe that's where Netflix kind of dropped the ball a little bit on there as well. They kind of really made no big deal about it and kind of brushed it off. This could have been just the position of the game at that point there as they were doing the telecast, but they really didn't make much of that. Other than that, they did a decent job. And again, if you're a Yankee fan, you surely take that win. You just hope that Judge has a little bit better outing at this point. But I mean, those pitches, it was kind of pitched pretty tough there. And you could always question the strike zone with him, obviously, because he's a tall frame. But I thought they were fair pitches, but I just don't think Webb just pitched him tough there. But fortunately for the Yankees, the other Yankees were able to get the Webb, and Webb probably having one of his worst outings of his career. Usually doesn't give up that many runs and tagged for the 7 runs there. But the Giants bullpen able to come and at least settle things down. But again, Yankee bullpen, and of course Fried pitching the 7th inning helped there as well. So that's the episode. Yankees get off on a good foot, 1-0 in the standings. So play 2 more games in San Francisco before traveling to the Mariners as they stay on the West Coast. So we'll catch you next time.